Microsoft Teams is helping a bicycle company reinvent the way that they work.
We make bicycles for everyday riders. Once the pandemic hit, we started doing virtual visits.
All of a sudden, we could open up our showroom to customers around the world.
Learn more at Microsoft.com/Teams.
Empire.
Welcome to a Super Bowl edition of Inside the Cap. I'm your host, Joel Corey. You can find me on Twitter at Corey Joel, CORRYJOEL, and also read my regular CBSSports.com column, Agent's Take, on contract and salary cap matters. First thing we're going to talk about today is looking at high-end contracts in the NBA and NFL, looking at how Patrick Mahomes' contract, highest paid player in football, compares to Giannis Antetokounmpo's contract, the highest paid player in the NBA. And I'm not going to say his last name again throughout this podcast. I'm just going to either call him Giannis or the Greek Freak, his nickname, because that last name is a mouthful. Patrick Mahomes over the summer signed the richest contract in North American team sports history. 10-year, $450 million contract extension worth up to $475 million with incentives. The incentives start in the first year, new year, 2022. There's $1.25 million each year for the Chiefs advancing to the AFC Championship game, provided Mahomes plays either 50% of the plays in the regular season or in the AFC Championship game, at least 50%. And also $1.25 million for being league MVP. Patrick Mahomes is not going to be league MVP 10 years in a row. He won't be league MVP this year. So that's how you get to there's $2.5 million of incentives each year. That's how you get to the $475 million max total of new money. Now, in the middle of December, Giannis signed a fully guaranteed 5-year, $228.2 million contract extension. Now, first, let's talk about some of the differences between NBA and NFL contracts. The most significant difference is that in the NBA, fully guaranteed contracts are the norm. All the guys who are at the top end of the pay scale, fully guaranteed contracts. In the NFL, Kirk Cousins, the only veteran who has signed a fully guaranteed contract. That was when he left the Redskins for the Vikings in free agency a couple of years ago. 3 years, $84 million was fully guaranteed. The most money fully guaranteed in an NFL contract. Matt Ryan's 5-year, $150 million extension, which made him the first $30 million per year player in the NFL. $94.5 million fully guaranteed. That is a major difference between the two sports and how their contracts work. Since contracts aren't fully guaranteed, and historically you go back to the beginning of the football salary cap, the only guaranteed money was signing bonus, which can get prorated over the life of a contract up to a maximum of 5 years. Big signing bonus, which teams have gotten away from and started doing a mix of signing bonus and yearly salary guarantees. The big signing bonus acts as deterrent from the team cutting a player in the early years because the proration of the signing bonus in most cases would accelerate in the team's current salary cap upon release. In the NBA, you have strict limitations on how long a contract can be, how much the annual salary increases can be, and there are salary maximums. There are no salary maximums in the NFL. In the NBA, you couldn't do the type of contract Patrick Mahomes did. It's 10 years. That's too long. You can't go 10 years in the NBA. When I was still doing consulting for our former boss, Leonard Armato, who represented Shaq, helping him with Shaq's free agency to leave Orlando for the Lakers. The max contract length was 7 years in the NBA. Now it's been shortened. The standard is that you can have a 4-year contract and a 5% annual raise each year. But under certain instances, you can have a annual 8% raise and also be under contract for 5 new years. Now, that's because the NBA is trying to encourage teams to players to stay with their own team. Also, with these salary maximums, how they work, if you have 0 to 6 years of service, it's 25% of the salary cap. 7 to 9 years of service, it's 30 to 35% of the 30% of the salary cap. 10 plus years of service, it is 35% of the salary cap. And with Giannis's case, he's getting 35% of the salary cap when the extension kicks in next season, even though he is in his 8th NBA season, because you can qualify for a higher maximum, and he's done that by his performance, and he signed what's called a supermax contract. That's because if you were MVP in any season, any of the previous 3 seasons, earned either All-NBA honors, Defensive Player of the Year in the previous season, or 2 of the previous 3 seasons, then you can go up a tier in terms of your max salary. So what Giannis did was sign what's called a designated veteran player extension. And he qualified because he did all those things. So it's 35% of the cap for next year. In the NFL contracts, with the signing bonus, the new money gets allocated some of it over the remaining years of a contract. Mahomes has 2 years left. In the NBA, you tack on the new money. The extension begins when the old contract ends. So Giannis isn't getting any more new money this year. So it's like 27.8 this year. No, 27.5 under his old contract, the final year of it. He's making the $27.528 million this year. Then next year, his starting salary projects to $39.344 million in the first year of the deal, of the new deal. The salary cap projects to $112.4 million next year. How these work is if the salary cap is higher or lower than expected, then the contract gets adjusted. The yearly, the 35% amount would get adjusted. So the cap comes in higher, it's going to be more than the $39.344 million in the first year. If it's lower, then that number gets adjusted downward, and that affects every other year because the raises are 5% of the first year's salary or 8% of the first year's salary, depending upon if you're staying for the same team or switching teams. Giannis is switching teams. Staying for the same team, so he's getting the 8% raise for his contract, and that's going to equate to every year his salary is going to go up $3,147,597. It's going to run through the 25-26 season, whereas Patrick Mahomes, with the 10-year deal, is under contract through 2031. Now, the average for Giannis over the 5 years is a little higher than Mahomes. Mahomes is 45 in new money. Giannis is at 45.64 in new money. Mahomes signed that unique contract, and the only reason that you would sign the long deal is because he's got some unique features in his contract that typically don't exist in really long deals. And you really don't see the type of deal he did in the NFL anymore. You did have some quarterbacks in the early 2000s sign really long contracts. The longest contract besides his is the 8-year extension Tyron Smith did in 2014, but nobody's really signing that long. The conventional quarterback deal in recent years has been 4 new years being added. Matt Ryan, the exception, added 5 new years. So that's what Deshaun Watson did, added 4 new years, signed with 2 years left on his rookie contract, just like Mahomes, but 4 new years is what he gave up. Most of Mahomes' compensation each year is in these big unsecured roster bonuses that become fully guaranteed at least a year early. Like in 2027, that's when he has his biggest roster bonus. It's $49.4 million roster bonus on the 3rd day of the league year. It's got a $10 million base salary and a $550,000 workout bonus. That roster bonus becomes fully guaranteed on the 3rd day of the 2026 year, a year early. So, and then on the 3rd day in 2027, the base salary and workout bonus, the 10.55, become fully guaranteed. So they basically have to buy him out by paying $49.4 million to exit the deal in 2027 before the 10.555. became fully guaranteed. So that's really makes his contract unique. So it's going to be hard for him not to get most of the money in his deal. He's basically traded out most of his career, given that this contract runs longer than the new CBA that was ratified last March. But if you look at the most apples and apples comparison you can do between Mahomes and Giannis's contract is to look at where they are in their first new years. Second new year, third new year, fourth new year, fifth year, the common year, new years of the contract. For Giannis, his first new year is next year, 2021-2022 season. For Mahomes, it's 2022. So in terms of new money through the first new year, just not going actual year, but first new year, Mahomes is at $35.4 million, Giannis $39.344 cumulatively. After 2 new years, Mahomes is at $75.9, Giannis is at $81.37 million. Third new year, Mahomes $113.85 million, Giannis $127.477 million. Through the fourth new year, Patrick Mahomes at $155.8 million, Giannis $176.265 million. Through the fifth new year, Mahomes $197.75 million, Giannis at $228.5. At that point, Mahomes' contract, the new money average is $39.55 million, where Giannis is at $45.64. That's because Mahomes' contract is backloaded. He's got basically 44% of his money, new money, through the first 5 new years, and 56% of the new money through the final 5 new years. He's got $252.25 million in those last 5 years. So those last 5 years average $50.45 million. Now, what type of contract would Giannis sign when his contract is up or when he's eligible? In the NBA, there are more strict type of rules in terms of when you can sign an extension. It's the earliest Giannis can do it is a third anniversary from when he signs this extension. So that would be 2 years into the new years, after 2 new years. And then he could tack on 2 more years because he'd have 3 years left, and he could tack on 2, be under contract for 5 years. But let's say hypothetically, Giannis waits and does what he did this time. In the final year of the contract, he does an extension. And we're going to do some speculating here just because we don't know what the NBA landscape is going to look like then. The CBA runs out after the 2023-2024 season, I believe. And we're assuming that the CBA isn't going to be dramatically different and the rules are going to carry over like they have from previous CBAs. Maybe they'll be tweaked a little bit. But assuming that the CBA in place at that time isn't going to be substantially different from this one. Under CBA rules right now, Giannis's worst case scenario would be adding for a 26-27 year, say he does a 4-year extension then, would be a 5% raise of his last year's salary in his extension. So he's supposed to make $51.935 million in 2025-26. So that 5% raise is going to put his salary at $54.532 million, and then he can go up 8% off of that number in successive years, which would be $4.362 million. So he could sign a 4-year extension running through the 2029-30 season that's going to total $244.3 million. That deal is going to average basically $61.075 million. So Giannis is going to be better off as long as he keeps being a great player. He'll be on the cusp of being 31 when he would sign this extension that we're talking about. So over those 9 seasons, Giannis would make $472.5 million. We're talking the 2021-22 season through the 29-30 season. And Mahomes' the new money in the first new contract years is $397.55 million. So I think you still want to be a basketball player over a football player. And if you're an agent, you want to be a basketball agent over a football agent just because you can charge 4% as a max fee. NFL, 3% of the max fee. Right now in the NBA, we only have one player. In the NFL, we only have one $40 million per year player. That's going to change. That's Patrick Mahomes at $45 million per year in the NBA. We have 9 guys who are making $40 million per more on a contract that they've signed. So Mahomes bridges the gap between NFL, NBA money, but still NBA money much different than NFL money. The primary difference, fully guaranteed contracts versus contracts which become a series of one-year team options once the guaranteed money runs out in the typical contract, high-end contract, usually after the 3rd year, maybe the 4th year.
Support for this podcast comes from State Farm. It's no surprise that State Farm is there to help you protect your home or car, but you may be shocked to hear that State Farm offers surprisingly great rates. Yeah, that means you get a dedicated State Farm agent and access to their award-winning app, all at a surprisingly great rate. So if you're hearing my voice right now, State Farm probably has a surprisingly great rate for you. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The other thing we're going to explore today is looking at the 2 Super Bowl participants, the Buccaneers and the Chiefs, and see how they are allocating salary cap resources for the key contributors on each team. There's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak, in terms of assembling a roster under the salary cap, one that is a contending team. The ideal way is amassing a lot of talent with a low-cost rookie quarterback. I'd say the prime example of that was the Seahawks when Russell Wilson was on his rookie contract. That's when they had the most talent. They haven't gotten back to the Super Bowl since Russell Wilson's been on high-priced veteran extension contracts. The Chiefs are along those lines because Patrick Mahomes, although he signed the big extension, cap number's really low this year. We'll get that in a little bit. But they've been able to amass talent in that way because of that reason. This year's salary cap is $198.2 million, but there's something called an adjusted salary cap, which means each team's salary cap is usually different from what the league-wide cap is, because unused cap room can be carried over from one year to the next, and there are other adjustments, mainly because of likely to be earned incentives that weren't earned and not likely to be earned incentives that were earned, which can change what the actual cap room is. Only 2 teams, Browns and Colts, have bigger adjusted salary caps than the Chiefs this year. Chiefs are $223.019 million. League-wide average is $210.8475. The Buccaneers' adjusted salary cap is right around the league average, a little less than that. Theirs is $204.784 million. Now, the Chiefs had the 3rd most salary cap expenditures this year, $217.922 million. League-wide cap, $198. So that adjusted salary cap gave them a lot more room to play with. League-wide average in terms of expenditures is just a shade under $201 million. So just a little more than the league-wide cap. The Buccaneers coming at $202 million. Now, if you look at how they're on a overview on how the 2 teams are allocating the money, the Chiefs are pretty even offense-defense. Not much discrepancy. $87.82 million offense, $88.17 million defense. Tampa Bay, they're really heavily weighted offense. $91.5 million offense, $78.5 million defense. Now, by key contributors, I'm not including special teams. They're separate. We've got, for the key contributors, both teams have 16 players on defense. And on the offensive side of the ball, Chiefs, we're talking 15 players, and for the Bucs, 14 players. We're basically the same number of players, but a little bit different allocations. Quarterback, big difference. Tampa Bay signing Tom Brady away from the Patriots after his 20 years there when he was in free agency. 2-year, $50 million contract, worth up to $59 million through incentives. They used a pay-as-you-go contract model, which is what Tampa does. That's something they started under Mark Dominic when he was GM. And then Reggie McKenzie was doing that with the Raiders when he was the GM, where under a pay-as-you-go model, your cap and salary cap numbers are the same because there's no signing bonus. You give a roster bonus and base salary guarantees. And if you don't restructure the contracts, once the guarantees run out, you got a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do in terms of cutting somebody, because there'd be zero dead money, cap charges for players no longer on the roster under this model. Tampa used this model with Brady. So cap number, and the cap numbers are including the money earned for the daily workout program. So his is just a shade over $25 million. Mahomes' cap number is basically the same as what it would be under his rookie contract if he'd played it out instead of signing the deal. That was designed on purpose. He got a $10 million signing bonus and then chopped his base salary down to his league minimum $825,000. There's the bonus proration still for this year from his rookie contract, but his cap number is $5.34 million. So basically the Chiefs still operating under a low-cost quarterback, even though he signed the extension. He's getting $6 million of new money over the 2 remaining years of his contract extension, which is absurdly low. But you're talking teams, at least from the quarterback level, going 2 different directions. Now, neither team has any money in running backs, and I wouldn't put money in running backs either if I'd try not to, because you can find them in the draft. I would go with the model that I'm going to have a rookie running back or a guy with low mileage on a rookie contract, then go from there. Now, in terms of the running backs, Bucks basically $4.4 million, Chiefs $2.6 million. Leonard Fournette's got the biggest cap hit for a running back for the deal that he signed after he got cut by the Jags at the roster cut down. His cap number's 2.5, 1 year, $2 million deal worth up to $3.5 million in incentives. Ronald Jones's cap number is like 1.997 million, so that's where 1.28 million, I should say. Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's cap number is 1.97 million. The Chiefs took him last pick of the first round. So running back, no money. Receivers, different story. Tampa makes a bigger allocation receivers than a running back, but the Chiefs, that's where they put the bulk of their money. In terms of their wide receivers, $36.46 million in cap charges versus $12.447 for the Buccaneers. Sammy Watkins has a huge cap number. His is like 15.8, and that's after him taking a pay cut. He chopped his salary down to stay put. He cut $5 million, took a $5 million pay cut, had the ability to make $16 million through incentives instead of making the $14 he was going to make. Didn't earn any incentives because he was hurt part of the year. But you got him at 15.879, and you got Tyreek Hill at 17.74 is their main cap charges at receiver. And those are the third and fifth highest receiver cap charges this year. Then that's a big chunk of where their cap resources have gone offensively. Tampa's got better receivers. I like their trio. And then if you make it a quartet, the speedster Scotty Miller in there, who would probably lose to Tyreek Hill if they did race. But Mike Evans did a restructure. They've done that I think they've done this for the third year in a row. Just restructured his contract in some way, shape, or form. But his cap number is going to be up there with Tyreek Hill's. He dropped it down to $8.394 million with a salary conversion, which created $9.562 million of cap room. Chris Godwin, he's on the last year of his rookie contract, earned the proven performance escalator that under the CBA he signed his deal under third through seventh round picks. So they played 35% or more in 2 out of the first 3 years, a cumulative 35% throughout the first 3 years. Then their fourth year salary escalates to the lowest RFA tender. So his cap number's $2.338 million. And then Antonio Brown was signed after his 8-game suspension for violating the personal conduct policy was served. That he's at a base value of $1 million, can make up to $2 million, $2.5 million through incentives. So that trio, you got, to me, Brown, who before he imploded with the Raiders was in that discussion with Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, best receiver in football. You add that to one of the better duos already, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That's tremendous value less than $12.5 million cap charges for those three guys. Sammy Watkins hasn't lived up to the contract that he signed in free agency a couple of years ago. $16 million per year, and has had his moments, but that's really way above what a number 2 receiver makes. So Brett Veach, the GM, said he'd like to have him back, and Watkins seems, at least publicly, somewhat receptive to not chasing every last dollar. So we'll see if Sammy Watkins remains a Chief after this season, after the Super Bowl, since he will be headed for the open market. Tight end is interesting because you got Rob Gronkowski, who arguably may be the best tight end in NFL history, and was what everyone aspired to be. Great blocker and receiver. And Travis Kelce, who has done some things statistically nobody else has done. He keeps putting together back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons for tight ends at an unheard-of rate. No tight end has ever had, besides Dallas Clark, at least 100 catches, 1,000 receiving yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns in the same season. It's happened 3 times. Kelce's done it twice, did it this year when he set the new single-season receiving record for tight ends of 1,416 yards. So he's now the standard. Gronkowski came out of retirement, was traded from the Patriots to the Buccaneers because they still held his rights in retirement. Got a 4th-round pick, the Patriots did, for Gronkowski, and that reinstated the final year of that long extension he was unhappy with that he signed in 2012, the 6-year, $54 million extension. The contract told during retirement, so he was going to be in the last year of his contract had he played in 2019. So the 2019 year became a 2020 contract year, and he made $10 million this year. So his cap number is basically his salary. Now, Kelce signed a 4-year, $57.25 million extension, making him the second highest paid tight end behind George Kittle. It averages $14,312,500 per year. An extremely team-friendly structure. Don't get me started on why I think this is a lousy deal from a player agent side. But he has the second highest tight end cap number at $11.28 million. Zach Ertz had the largest this year. So the tight end charges are pretty similar. Now, in terms of offensive line, still pretty close. Buccaneers, $35.33 million. Chiefs, $32.175 million. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, where the bulk of their cap charges won't be in the Super Bowl because of injuries. That you had Eric Fisher tear his Achilles against the Bills in the AFC Championship game, and that's unfortunate on a lot of fronts. One, those edge rushers for the Buccaneers having backup tackles, and one being Mike Remmers, who's moving from inside guard to tackle. Last time he was in the Super Bowl was with the Panthers, and Von Miller feasted off of him and became MVP. So you don't have your left tackle or your right tackle. Fisher, 2021 is his contract year, so that is a double whammy for him. Misses the Super Bowl, and who knows when he comes back or if he plays at all in 2021. But $15.231 million cap number. Mitchell Schwartz, the right tackle, has been out for back injury since the middle of October. He might be the best right tackle in football. $10.82 million is a cap number. The Buccaneers have 3 offensive linemen. The left side of the line, left tackle Donovan Smith, left guard Ali Marpet, and center Ryan Jensen, all making over $10 million per year. Donovan Smith has the biggest cap number among the 3 to shade over $14.5 million. So that's really offensive cap charges. We got basically 91.5, just under for the Buccaneers, and you got 87.821 for the Chiefs.
Support for the following passion comes from Lexus, celebrating the obsessions that drive us to go all in. From enthusiasts of all different spaces.
I'm Matty Moe. I'm living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm a conceptual artist. My obsession in life that I go all in on is inspiring people to see the world differently. I realized that if I truly want to make an impact in the world, I would have to use art to tell meaningful stories.
Matty's work is designed to challenge viewers.
I like pushing folks out of their comfort zones, encouraging them to chase their dreams, and helping them get there.
Passion is what drives Matty to continue creating.
Without passion, you cannot become obsessed. And without obsession, you can't push past the ordinary limits of possibility. Don't be afraid to fail.
At Lexus, they've gone all in on their passion, designing a pure sports sedan, the new Lexus IS. Designed to look as thrilling as it is to drive. Learn more at lexus.com/IS.
Let's turn our attention to the defensive cap charges now. Edge rusher, both teams put a lot of money into edge rusher. You've got Frank Clark, fifth highest paid cap number for an edge rusher at $19.3 million. Bucks placed a franchise tag on Shaq Barrett, $15.28 million tag. He's going to be a free agent this year. We'll see if they tag him again. Jason Pierre-Paul signed a 2-year, $25 million deal worth up to $27 million with incentives. So we've got for the Bucks, almost $34 million in cap charges. For the Chiefs, $25.61. Defensive tackle, relatively even, $14.684 for the Bucks, $16.655 million for the Chiefs. The Chiefs basically come from one person, Chris Jones. They gave him a franchise tag for $16.126 million. He signed a 4-year, $80 million extension, or deal, not extension, right before the franchise tag deadline of July 15th. Cap number dropped to basically $15 million. Chiefs are the only team in the NFL with two $20 million per year defensive linemen or pass rushers. And Ndamukong Suh's got the biggest cap charge at $8 million for interior defensive linemen with the Bucks. 1-year deal, $8 million to come back for a second year of $2 million in incentives. We got to tailor two different stories at linebacker. You've got the Bucks with $17.5 million of cap charges. The Chiefs with $18.28. Chiefs aren't getting the bang for their buck. Anthony Hitchens is the linebacker with the biggest cap charge, $12.692,500. But he's only on the field. Was only on the field for 56% of the plays this year in the 14 games he started. Levante David, Devin White, every down linebackers practically for the Buccaneers. David's in the last year of his contract, which he signed, 5-year extension he signed, which averages a shade over $10 million per year. $10.754 million cap number. Devin White on his rookie deal, 5th overall pick in 2019, $6.759 million cap number. Every down linebackers, those two. David only missed a handful of snaps, played 99.34% of the plays. White was on the field for 93.23%. Cornerback, neither team has any money invested in cornerback. Tampa's top 3 corners, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, all on rookie contracts. Biggest cap charge among cornerbacks, Bashard Breeland on his 1-year, $3 million deal, served a 4-game suspension at the beginning of the year, so he's only counting on the cap at $2.77 million. So no money at cornerback, either team. Young guys, Chiefs draft picks include 2024 round pick L'Jarius Sneed, who got our rookie honors. Safety, Bucks still guys on rookie contracts, so that's a little bit different story. Whereas Tyrann Mathieu, highest cap charge in the NFL for safety, $16.33 million. Still tied as the 4th highest paid safety with Landon Collins, $14 million per year on the deal he signed in 2019 free agency. So tailor two stories in terms of safety position. Bucks have no money or cap charges in the secondary because all young guys. Special teams, pretty close, $4.83 million. Chiefs, $4.41 million for the Buccaneers. We got Ryan Suckup, great bargain this year, signed a veteran salary benefit contract, which was at his league minimum salary of $1.05 million. Because of that he counts on the cap at the second player league minimum of $750,000. Made over 90%, just over 90% of his field goal attempts this year. Harrison Butker, Chiefs were proactive with him in 2019 when he was an exclusive rights player. Signed him to a new deal for new money average of just over $4 million, $4.055 million, when he was scheduled to make $645,000. That's the difference, that he's got a $3.195 million cap number. Now, last time we look at is dead money, which is salary cap charges for players who aren't on the roster. Not a lot of dead money for Tampa. Only one dead money charge over $1 million. That's Justin Evans. And Kansas City, its biggest dead charge comes from Eric Berry, who was released in March 2019 for post-June 1 designation, so he could split the cap charge over 2 years. So the bonus proration from the remaining years hit in 2020. That's $8 million. $8 million cap charge for Eric Berry. For the Chiefs, dead money, Chiefs at $14.324 million, and Tampa at $3.5 million total. So that's really how teams break down in terms of their key contributors. Evenly distribution, offense, defense, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, skewed towards the offense. Lots of money in receivers, or cap charges in receivers for Kansas City. No money in the secondary for Tampa Bay. Big discrepancy at quarterback, $25 million versus $5.3 million. So that's going to wrap up this week's edition of Inside the Cap. Don't forget, you can find me on Twitter at Corey Joel, CorryJoel, and my regular CBS Sports column and Agents Take. Check that out as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.